some other time, your time. You may be watching this live, or maybe you're watching a recording of it. It's great to see you. Once again, if you're new to the group, it's Matthew Dix here, storyteller, uh, storyteller, author, father, dishwasher, uh, folder of clothes, keeper of cats, many other things. I am just popping over to Facebook to make sure that my video is appearing where it should be right now, because we are in the midst of a Facebook Live. And I just want to make sure that I am there. So give me one moment. I will let you know that we are going to be here to talk about words on this particular Facebook Live. We're going to talk about how words can be deployed in storytelling in careful and strategic ways. And when we deploy them in careful and strategic ways, that provides for a great opportunity for people to maximize content. So I am just making sure that I am still where I need to be. I know some people are in the studio with me, and I'm just making sure that the people who are on Facebook are with me. So give me one more second while I listen to the cat. I have a special guest tonight. Our special guest is going to be joining us very shortly, a storyteller extraordinaire, someone who really knows what they're doing when it comes to storytelling. I don't seem to be live on Facebook for some reason. So let me just make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be. It's not that one. Just making sure. Give me one more second to make sure that everything is working and I am where I am supposed to be. I don't seem to be where I'm supposed to be. It's very strange. Nice to see you all. Those of you who are in the room with me, I'm about to reveal our guest. Very nice to see all of you. And I'm going to make sure that I am where I'm supposed to be. Yeah, it says I'm supposed to be there. Seems to agree with me. One more check and then we'll get started. Hopefully you're seeing me on Facebook Live right now. I know there's always a little delay. I mean, honestly, if it doesn't work, we're still going to go. Just record it and post it later and disappoint some people. Boy, I think some people are disappointed because I can't get on Facebook Live. All right. For reasons that I can't understand. Well, it's probably there and I can't see it. But let's get started. It's time to start. So welcome. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the placement of words. We're going to talk a lot about the placement of words, particular words, and how they can have an impact in the work that you do. And I have a special guest. It's a storyteller with us, a storyteller with some storytelling experience, some competitive storytelling experience, some personal storytelling experience, someone who's actually competed in story slams before, someone who really knows what they're doing, and actually in the studio with me. So I'm going to turn the camera, and you're going to see that my daughter Clara is with us.
Hi.
Clara, say hi.
Hi.
So Clara's with us. And Clara's with us because Clara's a storyteller, first of all. She has actually competed in a story slam before, and she has told a story at a show in Tacoma, Washington. So twice she has stood on stages and told stories to other human beings. More than twice? What?
There was that time I read the poem. Does that count?
Sure, we can make that count too. She's also a poet, and she's participated in a poetry slam as well. So she's stood in front of audiences and performed. But I have her here because, she's a storyteller, and she's extremely effective at the organization of language when it comes to stories. So I have a couple great examples of ways that she uses language to maximize surprise and suspense and things like that. So we're going to talk about that. And then we'll ask her about her experiences actually performing, because I have a lot of people who want to perform, but they're too nervous to do it. And if this 15-year-old girl can do it, you can too. I'll also... What?
I was 14 the second time and 12 the first time.
Right. And annoying all times. So,
It's not annoying.
So I'm gonna give you a couple examples, or I'm gonna have her give you a couple examples of things that she has done over time, and then I'll give a couple examples too. So why don't we start with Clara? Clara, there was a very memorable moment that indicated to me that you really understand how to use language in a way to maximize suspense and surprise. And that particular moment took place one day when I came home from work, and you were waiting for me with an envelope in your hand. Do you remember it well enough that you can share it? Okay. So Clara's going to tell you what happened that day.
It pretty well. So my dad came home from school that day. Okay.
Just ignore them and keep going.
This is my first time doing this, so
Yeah, you're doing great.
So my dad came home from school one day, and I think it was a half day for me, which means I was home earlier than him. I mean, I'm normally home earlier than him, and I'd gotten an envelope from the school that day that I had just so happened to open, even though maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know.
Who was it addressed to?
It was addressed to my parents. But I opened it anyway, and then I closed it back up, and I handed it to my dad, and I said, "Dad, you might want to sit down for this." And I could tell Dad was like, "Oh my God, what happened? What happened at school? What grade was I in then?"
Middle school. We'll just say middle school. It doesn't matter.
Because 1 year in middle school was a lot harder than the others, so it could.
Not important.
Yeah, so he was like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I kept like, "Oh, what else did I say?"
She told me to sit down. She told me she had opened the envelope, even though it was addressed to Alicia and myself, because she knew what was in it, and she thought it would be better if it came from her instead of me. And she looked nervous and she looked afraid. And I said, "Do you want me to read it?" And she said, "No, I would rather read it to you." And so she took it out and she took a deep breath and she paused. And then she said, "What?"
It said that I got student of the month, which is a big deal in middle school because there's so many people and most of them get student of the month a lot.
So it was your first time.
It was my first time.
So what she did.
2 times.
So what she did was she made it a moment, first of all, because most of the time when kids become student of the month and they come home and they make the announcement, it's forgotten within a year because they don't maximize the moment. And Clara is a big fan of maximizing moments. She actually used the phrase, what you used to say to me earlier today? You wanted to what?
I say a lot of things.
Oh, she said she wanted to make sure it had a big effect, right? So big effect. So she used some strategies. First of all, she maintained surprise by saying the most important thing last, which was great. She also set tone by just her vocalization, by the vocalization choices she made. And she created suspense by doing that thing that I tell people to do, which is she revealed some of the information, but not all of the information. So an envelope has arrived. I opened it, even though it was addressed to you. Suspense, right? I thought it'd be better if I told you. Suspense, right? I think you better sit down. Suspense. She created an enormous amount of suspense. And then eventually, after all that suspense was dispelled with, she released the surprise. And the beautiful thing about it is I will never forget the day that my daughter got student of the month for the first time, not because she got student of the month, because I do think those moments are ultimately forgotten, but because she told a story about it. She made a moment out of it. As in her words, she wanted to have a big effect, which is what we try to do in storytelling, which is to say we try to make every sentence or every word choice really that we make have the biggest effect possible. So what made you think of doing that, Clara? What made you do you remember what your mindset was at the time?
Well, no, not really. I think I just wanted to get an effect out of you because I know that you react when tone changes suddenly.
Yeah. Great. So tone changes suddenly and she gets a big effect. So she's noticing things probably by hanging around with me and paying attention to movies. She's quite a cinephile. She pays a lot of attention to that. So she's making some word choices. She's making sure that she's saving the most impactful sentence for the end. She's building suspense and she's recognizing moments. Now, there's another one I want to talk about, Clara. It was via a series of text messages. Can you talk about that one? Get a little close to the mic.
So I was homesick last year, I think. And when I'm homesick, I binge watch TV on the couch and play with the cats. And I was binge watching TV on the couch, and the remote fell into this radiator grate next to the couch, which happens a lot and is really annoying because it's really hard to get the thing out. So I sent my dad a text saying the remote's in the radiator again. And Dad was like, "Oh, man." And then I sent a picture of me holding the remote because right before I sent the text, I'd managed to pull the thing out. And I took a selfie of myself holding it. So a few seconds later, I sent him the picture. And then I sent, "But I got it."
So if you pay attention there, she didn't text me that she lost the remote and then pursue the remote and then find the remote and then show me the remote. She already had the remote in her hand when she realized this is an opportunity to once again surprise my father. So, with the remote in her hand, she texted me a message that said, "Dad, bad news. I dropped the remote into the
No bad news
radiator."
in there. I did not say bad news.
No, I'm just using it as an example. So, she basically texted me and said, "Dad, uh, remote is trapped in the radiator," which is bad news for me because that means we're gonna have to disassemble the radiator to get it out because we never can get it out. So she already had it in her hand when she said this, and then she sent me the text message, the text message including the selfie, which was a great way to surprise me. It was a visual surprise, which was fantastic. Again, it's the idea of structuring content in such a way so that the surprise comes at the end. So you build suspense, so you play on people's emotions, which are all the things that storytellers do when we're trying to create an effect, as Clara says, or what I would say is engage, entertain, uh, get people excited about what we're going to say. She does it brilliantly all the time. Let me give you an example, Clara, of one, okay, that I used actually today. I was telling a story in a workshop today. I don't know if you know this story, Clara. But the story goes something like, I didn't see the message. What did the message say,
It
Clara?
said room full, people are trying to join.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why they can't see it on Facebook, but that's unfortunate. So room is full. They're trying to join on Facebook, and for some reason, it's not showing up on Facebook. I'm sure it's my fault. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong, and I apologize. You're going to watch this later, Facebook people. Yeah, it should be right here, Clara, and it's just not. I don't know why it's not. I agree. It's weird. Anyway, here's what happened today, Clara. So I was telling a story. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I'm going to just start the beginning of the story. Okay. So essentially, the story starts with me walking across a parking lot on an early Saturday morning, and I'm walking towards this big, ugly building that you have actually been in many times. It's awful. It's ugly. It's poured brown concrete. It's brutalist architecture. It's the kind of architecture that tells me that the people in the 1970s, when this architecture was first born, really hated themselves and hated everything about that decade because they aggressively built things that were purposefully ugly. So it wasn't a good time. So I'm walking in this ugly building, but I'm not upset about the building. I'm upset about what's going to happen in the building, right? So somewhere up on the third floor of the building in a tiny little room near the back, at this very moment, someone is probably at this very moment being stuck with a needle and blood is being drawn from them, which is why I've come to this building on this day. I'm here for a blood draw. And I am terrified. I am terrified beyond belief. And typically in situations like this, Clara, I would wake up mommy and we would go down together and she would hold my hand and we go into that little room and she'd squeeze my hand when the needle is put into my arm and she'd rub my back and tell me everything's going to be okay, even though it's not because it's a blood draw. It'll at least be a little bit better because she'd be with me. But on this particular day, and here's where I use the word, Claire, I say, but unfortunately, something terrible has happened in our marriage. Right? So look at the look on Clara's face. Something terrible has happened in our marriage. I'm very specific about that. Do you have any idea? Do you know what happened in our marriage that was terrible?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about. And right now, one of my biggest questions is which building is it?
But aren't you curious about what's terrible in our marriage?
Yeah. Yes, I also just want to know what building it is too.
It's a medical building in Newington.
Oh, that
Yeah, it's a big, ugly medical building in Newington. So I say something terrible has happened in our marriage. I say that, and I use the word marriage very specifically because when I say something terrible has happened in our marriage, what are you thinking, Clara? What bad things can happen in a marriage?
I don't read. I don't know much about that, but I do know people whose parents have gone through divorces. Oh, let's see. Well, I know a lot of people whose parents have gone through divorces.
Right. So everyone's thinking about marital strife at this point when something terrible has happened in our marriage. But guess what terrible thing happened in our marriage?
What?
We had a baby. It was you. I say something terrible has happened in our marriage. We had a baby. And that means to wake up my wife, wait for this, to wake up my wife on an early Saturday morning, a tired, exhausted wife of a newborn, and to get her out of bed and then to go over to the crib and get the sleeping baby out of the crib and get the baby dressed and get Alicia dressed and put them all into the car and drive them down to the center of town to have a blood draw, which people have all the time, would be a ridiculous thing to do. And that's exactly what I did. So do you see how I did that? I presented it as a ridiculous thing that I would never do. And then I said, it's exactly what I did. Do you see how I maximize that effect?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I tried to do that. I woke her up and my wife said, no, I am not going with you. And that is because, of course, she now loves the baby more than she loves me, which is what happens when babies are born. Husbands get second place instead of first place. So I want you to pay attention to that because once again, this is not necessarily structure of storytelling. This is not stake, suspense, surprise. This is not framing of a story, thesis statements. This is not all of those things. It's essentially the word choices that I'm making that are critical to maximizing the effect, as Clara says. So instead of saying something terrible has happened, which is the original version of that story, the first time I told it, Clara, I said, something terrible has happened. We had a baby. That's pretty good. But something terrible has happened in our marriage is a better way of saying that because it indicates a specific kind of problem and it sends people in one direction. And when people go in one direction, then I get to throw them off even harder with a misdirect. Does that make sense?
I love doing that.
Yeah, I love doing it too. And then the second part is the whole it would be ridiculous for me to do this and this and this and this and this. And that's exactly what I did, which is true. That's what I did that day. But rather than saying, I did this terrible thing, which involved this and this and this, I set it up as I would never do it. It would be ridiculous for me to try to wake up the wife of a newborn and the baby and put them all in the car. All of those things would be utterly terrible for me to do. And that is exactly what I tried. Right. And she's laughing about it again. I'm having an effect on her. It's not storytelling in a structural sense. It is, boy, sometimes a word choice can really make a difference. The word marriage makes a difference. And doing this and this and this and then this would be ridiculous to do. So I indicate that it is ridiculous. And then I say, it's exactly what I did. The word marriage and the word ridiculous change both of those sections of the story completely. And it's really important too, because it's the beginning of the story. I am much less concerned about word choice as the story moves along. Because once the story moves along, everyone's on my plane with me. They're already flying with me and they're going to stick with me till the end. But the beginning of a story, it's the moment where I hold them or I lose them, and I want to hold them. So I want to maximize effective word choices at the beginning of a story in that way. The same way Clara maximizes word choices by saying things to me like, a letter has arrived, Dad. It had your and Mom's name on it. I opened it. I probably shouldn't have. I think you should sit down. All of those word choices are maximizing the effect so that she can have that utterly unforgettable and fantastic moment with me that I appreciated so much. So, anything to say about that, Clara?
I'm not sure if it really counts, but I write short stories a lot. And in one of them I wrote called Demon. It starts with it basically starts with Sydney never knew what her best friend Damien did over the weekend. And then in the story you find out what Damien does on the weekend.
Great. So you created some wonder at the top of your story. You created some stakes. You got a character named Damien, who I assume is probably a bad guy because Damien is the name. No, I love that.
No, he's named after the kid from The Omen, and he is a demon, but he's not a bad demon. You read that story. It's the one with the
I did. I'm sorry.
with the movie theater.
I know you write a lot of things, sweetie pie. All right. So she named Damien after a character in The Omen. I told you she's a cinephile. She's never actually seen The Omen, just for the record. Please don't think I let my daughter see The Omen. But she reads about every movie, even the one she doesn't see. So he named a character after Damien, which lent me to think it was going to be a bad guy or a demon. It actually is a demon, but a good demon. Okay, good job. Yeah, that's what we do. In storytelling, we maximize the beginning of stories by language choice and by creating suspense and surprise. Excellent. You want to say something else?
And the character Sydney in that story is named after Sidney Prescott, which also at my I named her specifically after a classic horror movie, Final Girl.
And what movie is Sidney Prescott in?
Scream.
Oh, Scream.
We just watched Scream.
That's true. We just watched Scream. I'm sorry, I forgot that Sidney Prescott was a character in that movie. You can see Clara's making choices now. She's talking about fiction right now, which doesn't necessarily apply to the storytelling we talk about, but it does apply in that she's making careful choices, which is great, right? She's not just choosing names from thin air, but she's actually referencing other stories in the naming of characters. Clara's all about making excellent choices when it comes to language, which is what we have to do. You're welcome, which is what we have to do in storytelling. So, I hope that was helpful. I'd like to now we're going to shift a little bit. I'm going to ask Clara about the two times that she performed. I'll tell you a little about the first time. When she was, 12 maybe? 12, we were in Tacoma, Washington. We were at the home of John Cummings, thank you, and his husband, whose name escapes me at this moment. And we were there, and my agent Taryn was there. And John has a Sunday morning storytelling show in his home. It was great. I didn't know Clara was going to tell a story. I had been invited to tell a story, and there was a hat, and you could put your name in the hat to tell a story. Clara had gone and put her name in the hat without telling us. Uh, as a result, we don't have a recording of her first story. So I was smearing cream cheese on a bagel when I heard John say, "Our next storyteller is going to be Clara." And I looked up and thought, oh, there's another person in the room with the name Clara. But no, it was my daughter walking to the front of the room to perform in front of maybe 50 people. And I couldn't believe it because she didn't tell us she was going to do it. I actually didn't even know what story she was going to tell. I didn't even know she could tell a story really at that point. She told a great story. Tell us a little bit about that moment for you. Not necessarily the story, but tell us what you were thinking, why you decided to do that, why you didn't tell us, that kind of thing. By the way, she didn't tell us, maximizing effect. Here you go.
I didn't tell them
Get
because
on
I
there.
wanted to surprise them. I love surprising my parents. And, well, I was 12 years old. I'd never told a story in front of people. I told my parents about what happened during my day, but that doesn't really count, I think. And the summer previously, I'd dealt with a thing with a toxic friend that turned enemy. And I was still dealing with that because I hadn't really realized that a friend that you trusted could be toxic because I was 12 years old and I'd never had to deal with that before. And so, so I decided when I saw all these other people telling stories about crazy stuff they went through. For example, there was a 14-year-old there was a trans 14-year-old there, and he'd gone up and told a story about that process. That's the one I mainly remember. I don't remember any of the others. But I thought to myself, if all these people can do it and my dad does it like all the time, why not me too? So I went up and I stuck my name in the hat, and I told John I'd stuck my name in the hat. But I also told John that I didn't want my parents to know because I wanted to surprise them. Yeah. Yes, John knew too.
And
And
how nervous were you? Talk about being
I was
nervous.
a bit nervous. Yeah, I used to have really bad stage fright when I was a little kid in dance classes. And oh, thank you.
Don't get distracted. Keep
Sorry.
going.
And I don't really have stage fright anymore, but I do still sometimes get anxious. I don't like during chorus concerts, I try not to look directly at all the people. I look directly at my parents or someone I know. So that's kind of what I did. I looked directly at Taryn because I knew Taryn.
My agent.
Yes, his agent. And I knew Taryn, so I looked directly at her during most of the story, and I glanced over at my parents sometimes too. But I, it felt really good. It felt really good because I hadn't really talked to other people about what had happened that summer.
That's great. So, a few things that Clara did that we can all do as storytellers. I love when she said, telling your parents about your day doesn't really count in terms of storytelling. And boy, is she right. That is the difference between reporting on your life and telling a story about your life. Reporting on your life is uncrafted, chronological account of what is going on in the day versus what Clara did, which was a more crafted storytelling version of the events. So I love the way she recognizes the difference between reporting on your day and actually telling a story about your day. That was great. I also love her idea of looking at certain people. I always advise people, Clara, when they're sort of speaking to a large audience, and even I do this, I'll find someone on the left who loves me. It's someone who smiles at you. There's certain people that sort of live their emotions on their face. And so you can tell someone likes you just by the way they're looking at you. So I find someone usually on the left who likes me. I find someone in the middle who likes me, and then I find someone on the right who likes me. And I sort of focus on those three people. They don't know I'm focusing on them because when I look left, the whole left side thinks I'm looking at them. But really, I'm just looking at one person, and then same thing center, and then same thing right. And I do that back and forth, and I go back and forth. That is when you can see people. Oftentimes in a larger theater where I perform a lot, you can't see anything because there's a spotlight in your eye, and you're just sort of in a curtain of light, and you can see nothing outside of it. But those two things are great, what you just described, Clara. And for the record, I did not know she had spoken to John. This is the first time I'm finding that out. I didn't know that she had sort of let John know that she was going to be telling a story and wanted to surprise me. But I love the fact that she loves to surprise her parents. Surprise is, you've heard me say it before, if you've been around at all, the most delightful, wonderful, joyous experience you can give a person. And Clara's really into it. We're going to move on. So, Clara, second time you told the story was at a story slam. Now, Clara didn't get scored at the story slam because Alicia and I were actually judges in the story slam. So she competed with 10 people and she didn't actually get a score. I can tell you from my perspective as a judge, and I can tell you what mommy thought too. Both of us thought that Clara would have finished in third place that evening. She would not have won, in my estimation, based upon the storytellers, and she would not have come in second, but she would have come in third, and she was competing against all adults. And the two people who would have performed ahead of her were experienced storytellers who have actually been through my workshops many times and are excellent storytellers. Most people had, yes. So in their own right, though, they're excellent storytellers. But she would have come in third, legit. I was really proud of her. So can you tell us about that, Clara?
Um,
Get close to the mic.
well, I told the same story actually. I modified it a bit, but I told basically the same story about the toxic friend at summer camp, this toxic summer camp friend. And Charlie wasn't there. Charlie was at a camp. Charlie was at camp. No, wait, no, Charlie was there. He just really didn't want to be there.
Okay.
So, um, I have autism. So sometimes being in front of like a large crowd, mostly full of people I don't know or in like an unfamiliar setting, like it was different at John's house because I mean, I'd never been there, yeah, but it felt more homey because like there were cat beds everywhere and there were couches and bagels. Familiar stuff. And I had never been in this particular place. It was full of folding chairs and there were plants on the walls, I think, which I just always thought was weird. And full of people who I did not know. It was Charlie and I were the youngest people there. And to be quite honest, I was a bit nervous because I didn't know any of these people and I wanted to be facing them and not off to the side where my parents were sitting. So what I did in that case was I focused on a particular spot on the wall behind everyone. And I spoke at them, but also while staring at the spot on the wall. And I use my hands a lot in my stuff because when I tell stories, because I really hate I like having something to do with my hands all the time. Makes me uncomfortable when there's nothing there. And so since when I'm telling a story, I can't like play with my fingers like I normally do. I like articulate with my hands like that. That's the best way I can do it, really, without actually telling the story. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
How'd it feel?
Felt good. It felt really good.
Yeah, I love that. Felt really good. It did. It felt really good to listen to her too. A couple things that she said there that we can be thinking about as storytellers. One is, I love she said, I told a version of the story, but I modified it. So a story isn't finished, a poem isn't finished, Walt Whitman said, until the poet is dead. Essentially, you continue to revise your poems. He continued to publish a book called Leaves of Grass up until his death. He kept republishing his poems. Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman, a very famous American poet. And storytellers are the same way. The first version of that story that I told that didn't have the word marriage, the second version it did. Stories are constantly changing and modifying. Clara, did you memorize your story or did you just remember your story?
I remembered my story. I'd practiced it like twice that day, I think. But I hadn't really. It was a bit different than the way it was when I first did it. I just was going over what I was going to say. Then I added extra little details and explained the game that caused our falling out a bit better. It's very complicated, that thing. But yeah.
So no memorization, which is what I tell people all the time. She's not memorizing the story that she's telling. She is remembering it and allowing herself to ad lib in the midst of the story too. So if something comes to your mind and you think, wow, I should throw this in. If you don't memorize, you get to throw it in, which is fantastic. So I love that she's modifying her stories. They're improving over time. Interesting thing about the hands. This is the first time I've ever heard her talk about this as well. It is true. She has autism, and one of the things she likes to do is to always be busy with her hands or with a book. She brought a book down into the studio, and up until the moment I clicked go live, she was reading her book. So she likes,
Until you pointed the thing at me.
yeah. So she stays busy quite a bit. But I like what she said about her hands, which is she's articulating with her hands. People always ask me what to do with their hands. And what I say is you let them do whatever they want to do. Once you start thinking about what they should do, then you're going to be in trouble. So Clara allowed her hands to sort of go off and help her tell the story, but you weren't really thinking like, oh, at this point, I'm going to do this when I say this,
No,
right?
I was just doing what I would normally do if I was just telling it to one of my friends.
Great. Just doing what I would normally do if I was telling it to one of my friends. I mean, these are all the things that I tell people to do in storytelling. And my 15-year-old daughter, who's never taken a workshop from me in her life, but has spent a lot of time with me.
And also, I can hear every single workshop you do from my bedroom.
Okay, so maybe she's taken some workshops with me after all.
When you're doing it, I mostly like to have a different kind of noise. So I listen to music, watch a TV show or movie, or watch a YouTube video.
Got it. So she's doing the kinds of things that storytellers do, and she's doing it at a very young age. So you can too. That's why I brought her here for our special guest, because I love the way she uses language. I love the specificity of the way she uses language. I love the fact that she's told stories, and when she's old enough, she's going to come to the Moth and tell a story at the Moth.
That I will.
Yes, she needs to be 18 in most of the venues to be able to actually enter and tell a story, but we'll get her there before long. But don't grow up too fast, Clara. I really don't want that to happen. Do you have any before we go? Do you have any advice to storytellers out there who are looking to either tell a story or tell a better story? Anything you want to say? I have no idea what she's about to say. Here we go.
Well, I suppose if you're nervous about it, something I do when I'm nervous about something that I haven't really done before or don't have much practice on, I don't focus on the fact I don't I don't focus on things that I can't do. Like I don't focus on the fact that I don't focus on the fact that like I can't not do something with my hands. I don't focus on what am I going to do with that. I focus on stuff that I can do while I'm doing it. Like I can use big words that drive my I can use big words. I like using big words.
Yeah. I mean, the wisdom of babes, right? Focus on the things you. No, it's an expression. It's a good thing. It means
I don't know that.
I know it means the wisdom of the young, and it's a positive expression. It means, boy, she just told me, don't focus on the things you can't do. Focus on the things you can do. Right? What a great bit of advice for storytellers everywhere. This comes up a lot. In fact, when I'm speaking to people who, for whom English is their second language, they worry about their vocabulary. They worry about their grammar, and I tell them not to worry about those things because they often don't mean a lick. Uh, and so we focus on the things they can do, which is they can tell a great story, they can be vulnerable, they can be funny, they can do all the things that storytellers do, even if occasionally their nouns and verbs don't agree, and their vocabulary may not be as extensive as Clara and her big words. So focus on the things you can do and don't focus on the things that you can't do. That's perfect, Clara. I love your advice. I think it is absolutely fantastic in every way. Great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to look at the screen. If you have any questions, you may pop a question in now, and we'll take a few questions and then we'll go. We're going to pull you up a little close just so I can see these questions, okay? And people have left us some comments, Clara. They told you that.
Thank you for the very nice comments.
I know, isn't it nice? People are saying nice things about you. But if you have any questions, you're so articulate, Clara. Great piece of advice.
I am.
Huh? Well, it depends. People are in different places of the world, so they might be popping up at different times in the world. What time is it here? It's 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Yeah, but I lots of people come from all over the world to tell stories. It's a really wonderful thing. Yeah, it's cool. I agree. So if you have a question, I'll give you just a second to pop it up. If you're hoping to see us on Facebook, I apologize that it hasn't happened. I'm clearly a fool, and I will have to figure that out. This happens sometimes, Clara. Can't argue there, she said. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sweetie pie. You're the best. All right. Someone said thanks so much. Great to hear you both. She's off to bed. I think so too. I think that's a wonderful thing.
We're gonna watch Jaws.
We're gonna go watch Jaws. Actually, is what we're doing, which is great. Clara, you're adorable. It looks like we're going to be free of questions. Oh, and regarding to the challenge, we have a challenge going on right now, Clara. The challenge every month we have a challenge, and this challenge is a toast.
Like a ding ding ding. like the ding, 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 ding on the spoon and the
Yes.
cup.
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing toasts, which often the best toasts include stories. So they're working on toast with stories that we're going to review at the end of the month. And someone asks regarding the toast challenge, can I toast an object and not a person? I think that's great. I wonder what object they're going to toast. Yeah, I think that's great. Toast an object instead of a person. Absolutely. Toast whatever you want. As long as you can tell a story about it, I think that's fantastic. And in regards to the toast, if you're watching this, toasts are due at the end of the month. You can post them onto the chat that or onto the Facebook post that Charlie and I did regarding the challenge. You can also email them to me. Yeah, no, he's not doing the challenge. She helped me with the description of the challenge. You were buying books in Barnes and Noble. Charlie plopped and I plopped down in a chair and did a video. Yeah, we do things like that sometimes. So yeah, toast whatever you would like. So a toast, like 3 minutes or so, 3 or 4 minutes. It can be shorter than that. That's great too. Include a story, toast something wonderful, and we're going to talk about effective toasts this month because that's an important skill to have, especially if you can toast. Quite often, there's opportunities to toast in the world. The problem is, Clara, people don't toast because they're not very good at it. So, like for example, we just had my birthday dinner right at the Bell City Diner. You could have toasted me. I'm not complaining. But that would have been an opportunity while I'm having a dinner for Clara to say a toast to dad. And then she says some lovely things. And then we all clink our shakes because we had shakes. We clink our glasses together. And then we could have had a toast. There's lots of opportunities to toast. I know you want to talk in a second. There's lots of opportunities to toast in the world, but not enough toasts are ever made because it's a tricky thing for people to do. But when you can do it well, you can become one of those people who are sort of um, flying off toasts left and right, and that's a wonderful thing.
Um, when I was about 10 or 11, we were at no, wait, no, I was younger than 10 or 11. We were at Great Nana, that's my great grandmother, one of her birthday parties, and Ari, he's my cousin, and we were sitting in a booth with the other kids, and we saw all the adults clicking their spoons against their glasses, and we didn't really understand what that was because we were little kids. So we started clicking our spoons against our glasses because we just thought it was fun, and everyone turned to us like, oh my god, they're gonna say something. So then we realized, oh wait, we're supposed to say something. So we said, love you, great Nana.
So that was the first toast you ever offered.
Yes.
Great. So we're working on toasts that are just a little more complicated than that, or a little more, lovely. Look, Jackie says I toasted my mom at a celebration of life. Then I clapped, but no one could clap too because they were holding their glasses. Embarrassing. That's not embarrassing, Jackie. The embarrassing thing that I see, I've been a wedding DJ and I've attended more than 500 weddings. The real embarrassing thing is when people offer a toast, but then they forget to do the toast itself. They say a speech and everyone is holding a glass waiting. And when they're done their speech, they say thank you. And then as the DJ, I have to come on the mic and go, and so cheers to so and so, which is the indication that now you can drink because that person has forgotten. So no, not embarrassing, Jackie. It's fine. Everyone makes mistakes, right? And it is true though. Don't ask for applause at the end of a toast because people are typically holding their glasses. You can get a round of applause, which is as a DJ, what I do is after everyone has had their drink, I watch actually, and when about 2/3 of the glasses are on the table, I say a round of applause for our best man, round of applause for our maid of honor, whoever's delivered the toast. But not embarrassing, Jackie, not at all. It's fine. You delivered a toast. And like I said, if you're someone who can deliver a good toast, there's a million opportunities in life to do it. And every time you toast someone, it's a real honor to that person to be able to toast someone. So I want to help people get good at delivering toasts. So thank you for being here. I'm sorry if you are watching this after the fact in Facebook. Not sure why it wasn't live for you, but I will work on that and figure out what went wrong. It's probably Clara's fault. I think it's probably something. Ow! It's probably something Clara did.
I didn't even touch the computer.
We're gonna go watch Jaws now, and then the good thing about Clara, she really is a cinephile. After she watches a movie, she reads about it extensively, and then she usually watches it several other times to examine sort of all of the intricacies of the movie. And for Jaws, Clara, you can read forever, and you will still have stuff to read. Uh, it's a fascinating and fantastic movie filled with outstanding cinematography and storytelling that we'll talk about.
I only know one thing about the making of Jaws, and that's that the shark thing malfunctioned while they were making it. So that's why the shark isn't apparently in there too much, because it was broken.
Which worked out great for Spielberg. If you know anything about that, it actually ends up helping the film to a great degree. We're going to go watch Jaws, and we're going to talk about suspense and surprise, and we're going to talk about hiding things on the edge of a lens and that what's not shown. Jaws is the perfect example. I always tell people in storytelling, it's what you not say, it's what you're not saying that is more important than what you're saying oftentimes. And in Jaws, there's nothing more true about that movie than what you can't see is more important than what you can see. So we're gonna go do that.
Like in a lot of movies, you don't see the thing, so it's left to your imagination of what the heck it is, or what the heck it looks like, or where it came from.
Yeah. Very true. All right, we're off to do that. Thanks for joining us. We will be back. Ooh, I wish I could tell you when. Maybe I can. Give me 1 second. No, I can't. We'll be back soon. And if you go to actually, let me tell you a couple things. I have a storytelling webinar breakdown if you're interested on February 29th and March 9th. I'm doing it twice, once in the evening and once in the morning, once in the evening during the weekday and once in the morning on the weekend. I'm taking one of my Grand Slam winning stories and I'm breaking it down step by step, bit by bit. I'm going to play the story, then I'm going to pause the story repeatedly and teach you what I do throughout the story. Both things that Clara and I spoke about, but lots of things like framing and how to create suspense and surprise and where to plant humor and how to preserve and enhance the surprises in a story, all the things that I do in storytelling. So if you want to get in on that webinar, you can check it out. It is on our Facebook page and our group. So check that out if you are interested. There's still time to sign up for that. And make sure you visit the page often. I will be sure to drop in some more content for you. And we will do another Facebook Live shortly. And I wish I could tell you what it was, but I can't because I cannot find where it is. I'm looking desperately to find it. And it is invisible to me. Oh, we have one coming up on February 26th. That's the monthly wrap up where I'm going to announce the winner. And we had on February 18th, which was today. So our next Facebook Live is on February 26th. But visit the Facebook page often. I will be sure to drop in some content for you to check out and look for our podcast to be relaunching next week. Alicia and I will be recording tomorrow.
Oh.
Did you know that?
No, you did not tell me that.
I surprised you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great story-worthy week. And we will talk to you very soon. Thank you very much. Take care. I have to leave the studio, Clara. They're still with us.
And I am going to drag this broken chair back.
Great.
And once again, broken chair.
Sorry about the broken chair, girl.